Hello, welcome to this channel. I'm very happy that you're here, and I'm very happy that we're gonna be able to talk a bit about our true nature. So just to begin this video, I want to repeat that my main language is Portuguese, so I'm just starting to make my videos on English as well. So forgive me for my mistakes that I will for sure make it on these videos, but I need to share the, the expressions of God, even though I don't speak a perfect English. So today we're gonna talk about surrendering to God. Surrendering to God is one of the most effective paths that we have on spirituality. Ramana Maharshi and other masters, they recommended mostly two paths. One is the path of surrendering to God, and the other, this one is called Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, and the other path is the path of self-inquiry, Atma Vichara. So these both paths for myself is what I lived on my own life, and not on an intellectual way. I lived these two paths in a very natural and organic way. Actually, most of my spiritual life, most of my, how could I say, most of my awakening, I lived before knowing and before reading the books. So for me, it was very organic and very natural. I was living this path of surrendering and this bhakti yoga, and I didn't even know what was happening to me. It was just happening. And also the path of Atma Vichara, self-inquiry, it was also happening to me, even though I didn't knew what was happening. So a very important thing to know about these paths is that they are not intellectual, and they are not like a practice that you do. It's something that comes from our heart, and it's very organic, it's very natural, it's like a flow that comes. And sometimes people ask, should I inquire now or should I surrender now? And this is not a question that we should do, because it's awareness or consciousness, or even we could say that is grace that knows what should happen with us. We don't have any voice on what should happen or shouldn't happen with us. Actually, one of the reasons that the persons on spirituality, they stay so many years in circles, and so many years lost, and so many years creating even more processes that are not necessary, it's because they're trying to control their path, they're trying to manipulate their path, they're trying to choose what's going to happen to them, or they want to choose what it's supposed to do now, or what isn't supposed to do now, to happen now. But what is very important to understand when we enter on this spiritual life is that we have no control. On the beginning of the path, we believe we have a control, and we believe we are doing the things. We believe we can do the spiritual life. But through the years, we see more and more and more that the spiritual progress and the surrendering and the Atma Vichara, the self-inquiry, and all this growth and all this surrender and all the realization is not something that we do with our hands or with our brain or with our mind or with our intellect. They also participate, but it's more a process of just letting be, letting go, of letting happen. So, and that's very difficult for us human beings because we are always trying to do things, right? We always learned since we were a child that we need to do things so we can conquer things, we can achieve things. And that's a normal thing to do in life, and that's an important aspect of life. But we need to see that when we enter or when we are developing and maturing on this spiritual life, that we need to let it go, get out of the driver's seat, like Adyashanti says. Actually, we don't even get out of the driver's seat because we were never there. We only had an illusion that we are driving the car. Actually, Adyashanti, he said that we are the one driving the car, we are the one on the back seat, we are the car, we are the road, we are the wind, and we are the universe. We are all these things on the same time. Okay? But coming back on the path of surrender, I will speak very briefly about this subject because, of course, if I'm going to speak about surrendering to God, I could spend like a week exploring this topic with you. And that's why it's very important that we need to have patience, and we need to know and understand that we are not going to learn or explore a topic in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Like, oh, I'm going to see this video on YouTube that talks about surrendering to God, and then that's it, I know everything. Or I don't need to do more anything, or I don't need to explore more anything. Because even though I'm here talking, let's say, 20 minutes about surrendering to God, there is so many more perspectives and so many other point of views that we need to explore. So that's why it's very important to have a teacher, to have someone that is going to guide you and to help you to your inner path and outer path. And even though we have our Satguru, that is the inner guru, the person that is outside, they're gonna be very helpful on our path. Like Ramana Maharshi, he said that everyone has their own inner guru, but it's very difficult to do the path without an outside teacher, because it's like a circle that we share and share and share through many lineages. Like I received so many teachings, and not intellectual teachings. I'm saying teachings that comes from the heart. So I received so many teachings from Adyashanti, from Rupertspira, from Eckhart Tolle, from Moji, from Ramana Maharshi, from Nisargadatta, and then I share. But I don't share like the thoughts or the quotes. I share the realization, okay, the experience. Because we can know many things in our head, but what is the most important thing is the realization that we have on our daily life, on our inner self. Because that's what's gonna have impact on our lives. The realization that we have here, the true knowing, not only the intellectual knowing, the mind knowing, and the body knowing, but the conscious knowing, when we are living the knowledge, not only knowing the knowledge, but being the knowledge. Okay? But coming back to the path of surrender, I cannot start this topic. Oh my God. Surrendering to God, on the beginning, we think also that is something that we can do. So I'm gonna surrender these emotions to God. I'm gonna surrender my suffering to God. I'm gonna surrender my attachments to God. But after we enter more and more this path of surrendering, we see more and more that like God or pure being doesn't want just 35% of ourselves, only 50% of ourselves, only 99% of ourselves. Pure being, God, wants 100% of our surrendering. But that's a problem for most of us, because when we are surrendering, we surrender, but we have this security that we're always attached to something. Okay, God, I can surrender that, but not that. I can surrender this, but not that. I can surrender until this. I can surrender until this limit, but after that, I cannot do anymore. I can surrender my ex-boyfriend or girlfriends, but I cannot surrender my son or my daughter. I cannot surrender my parents. I cannot surrender my attachments to my family. I cannot surrender my money. And then we see that we are not really surrendering. We are just like kind of doing a negotiation with God. And that doesn't work. I mean, it can work for like a few months or a few years, but through the years, we see that we need more and more and more and more. And then I remember, just to give example, that I remember the time that I was in New York, and I was living like this big realization, this big surrendering was happening in my life. And I was like, it was such a total surrender that I felt that I could even live on the streets. I could become a homeless person because I didn't care anymore. I was not like attached to anything, because like, oh, I surrender, God, but please don't still give me this bed to sleep. Okay, we can desire that, but you see that you are still afraid of losing something. And if we are still afraid of losing something, it means that we still have attachment to something. And if we say that we are surrendering to God, there is no half surrendering. And that's very important to know. That's like one of the most important things to know on the path of surrendering, is that there is no half surrender. There is no half surrendering. There is no 50% surrendering. Or it's 100% or it's zero. Even though you already surrender like 80% of your life, it's not enough. Even though you surrender like 98% is not enough. Because God wants everything. And you need to trust on this everything. Okay? But there it comes the moment when we come on a dead end, because we cannot freely and through a choice say, okay, God, now I surrender 100% and let it go. Take everything from me, from myself. We can try to do that, but 100% surrendering only comes as a grace. At least on my life, That was what I saw. That grace is something that we cannot do. It's something that just happens. So this 100% surrendering to God, it's something that comes as a grace. It just comes and you cannot even say no, because it's just happening and it's so strong and it's so total and it's so like it's a fierce grace, like adyashanti says. It's like a fierce grace. Is this fire that comes and consummate everything. It's like this cross that you are just crucified. There is no half crucifixion. There is no half burning. There's no half grace. There's just the total and total crucifixion of this body, mind, and ego. And that's the total surrender. And you surrender so much and so much that you even are surrendering the person that is surrendering. Because if you think, okay, God, I'm surrendering everything to you and I'm surrendering my life to you, but when you think, who is the one that is surrendering? You are still separate from God. It's me surrendering something to God. And this one that is surrendering something to God needs to go. His time has come. This separate being that is believing, that is surrendering something to God, this one is the only reason that you feel suffering, that you feel separate from God. This being that is have love for God, love, and is surrendering to God is the reason that you are not in union with God, that you are not one with God. Actually, we are always one with God. We just don't realize it because we believe on this separate being. So in the end of the surrendering, we come to this place where we're also surrendering the one that is surrendering. So you say, oh my God, there is nothing more for myself. There is no more floor. I'm just on this place of just being, because even my being that has a relationship with God, I'm surrendering. There is nothing more. There is nothing more to attach. And then you see, oh my God, this being that was surrendering to God didn't even exist. So my surrendering to God was just an illusion, because I was never separate from God. And there it comes the time when you see that the path of surrendering matches and it achieves the same result as the path of self-inquiry, Atmavichara, because when you are surrendering, you come to a realization that there is no one to surrender anything. And when you investigate your ego on the path of self-inquiry, you come to the realization that there is no one to surrender, that there is no one there. There is that when you inquire and investigate this separate being and you try to find it there inside of you, you see that there is no one there. So they come to the same place, and that's why the masters like Ramana Maharshi, he only recommended these two paths. And for my life, it was the two paths that they combined together and they were flowing together. There were times that was happening like this surrender in my life, and then it comes the self-inquiry, and then it comes the surrendering, and then it comes the self-inquiry. It's like a mix that's very organic and natural and spontaneous. I need to see this word later. It just happens with so much spontaneity. Okay? So, Master Eckhart, he has beautiful teachings about surrendering to God. On his sermon on the poverty, uh, I highly recommend these teachings of Meister Eckhart, the sermon on true poverty. And he says, perhaps I will do here another video about his sermon, that the true poverty is the one that doesn't want anything, doesn't know anything, and it is not anything. So if you want, like he says that if you want to make the wish of God, you are still not poor in spirit. There is this beautiful quote on the Bible that it says that only the poor in spirit will go to heaven, something like that. So what it means to be poor in spirit? Because if you are saying, he says that if you want to make the wishes of God, I'm gonna make my life a reflection of God's life, you're still rich in spirit. Because a poor person is a person that doesn't even want to make anything for God. Because if you want to make anything for God, you already want to do something. So you are not true poor in spirit. So the true poor in spirit is this person that doesn't even want to do anything anymore. And don't get me wrong, is not on this place that, okay, now I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to be on my house here, just being nothing. It's not from this place. It's like the ego structure is not responding anymore. It's not on control anymore. So it is being poor on spirit, it means being poor on ego. You are so poor in ego that you don't even want to do anything for God anymore because you're not separate from God. You are God. Right? But this is another topic that we need to explore, this affirmation that you are God. That's something very dangerous to listen. I remember that rupertspira, he says that it's not a blasphemy to know that I am God. The true blasphemy is to say that I am the separate being. And why he says that? Because the ego doesn't even exist, so it's a blasphemy to say that you are him. And it's not a blasphemy to say that you are God. But he say that you shouldn't say that you are God, because that's a wrong thing to do. There is this beautiful quote from Paul Brunton that he says that when the path to God finishes, the path in God begins. It's such a beautiful quote. When the path to God, because I believe that I was separate from him, finishes, the path in God begins, because now I see that I am one with God. And then everything I do is God doing, is pure being doing. I'm not doing more in the name of this separate being, this separate ego. Now I'm doing in the name of God, in the name of Christ, in the name of consciousness. Okay? But that's it. I'm gonna finish here this video. I could be speaking on this subject for like days and days and days and exploring with you. And please let me know your thoughts, your feelings about this topic. I'm very happy that I'm being able to do these videos in English. Forgive me for my poor English. I'm sure that will get better through the time. I want to do groups also in English. I want to do online groups so we can meet and explore together. I want to have your questions. I want to answer your questions. I want to help you on your path as well. And I'm sure we're gonna be able to make this purpose on English as well. So thank you very much for being here. Please share this video with your friends if you like it, and I see you next time.